Libro FM lets you purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore. Choose from more than 150,000 audiobooks, including New York Times bestsellers and recommendations from booksellers around the country. With Libro FM, you'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there. You know what one we're talking about, but you'll be part of a much different story, one that supports community.
If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to get more books into your busy life. Listen while doing chores, walking the dog, or just relaxing at home. All you need is a smartphone and the free Libro FM app.
If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations and curated lists from the people who know audiobooks best, local booksellers.
Listeners of the Bookstore podcast can get a 2-month audiobook membership for the price of 1 month.
Go to Libro FM, that's libro.fm, and enter bookstore at checkout. With each listen, take pride in knowing that you're supporting local bookstores.
Welcome to the Bookstore.
It's like a book club, but we actually read the book.
I'm Becca.
And I am Corinne. This week we are bringing you another recent news. I think it's related. It's book news related, sort of. Is it drama?
It's a bit of a scandal, yes.
Oh, a bit of a scandal. I have no idea what it is. It's a complete surprise. Becca probably told me at one point, but my one brain cell can only hold on to so much at this point. And so this will be a fun reveal to me. Before we get started, I think we'll just update you on our schedule coming up. I think our next book that we're reading is The Hunger by Alma Katsu, and then after that we'll be reading The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. Those are for our October challenge prompt, which is to read, it's like genre, so horror, thriller, suspense, whatever qualifies for you. And those are what's going to do it for us. So you can find those at your local bookstore or library and read along with us as you would. And then I guess that's all probably for news, really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I will just get started.
Okay.
So this is about I guess drama / scandal. I guess maybe more just scandal, less drama in the YA book world, which is where, I mean, everything. If there is some kind of drama happening, you can guess it's probably YA, and it's probably on YA Twitter, which is like its own sort of separate thing.
It's like Tumblr 2012.
Yes. And a lot of the people in YA Twitter, I mean, obviously all of the writers of YA books are all adults. So to me, it's totally fine to talk about because I know these people are all adults. I'm not making fun of like teens.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did, of course, first see this on Twitter. And it was an author asking if anyone knows what's going on with what I'm about to explain. And then from there on, like retweeted people and replied. So instead of sort of finding that thread and piecing it together, I will post a link to an article on the Mary Sue by Alyssa Shotwell. I'm not going to give you the name of it yet because it gives away the whole story, but I'm going to link that because that's not where I found it, but I was able to find that after the fact, and it gives a good summary. So, okay. Somehow this got into my timeline on Twitter. An author named Foz Meadows tweeted some screenshots from a website called YA Book Ratings. These screenshots were an explanation of how this particular website's book rating system worked. So the ratings were as follows: YA1, and I'm just going to read off all of the description of it because it's like very, very funny and we can discuss. But okay. So YA1, light kiss or no kissing, little to no violence, no drug use, no underage alcohol use. Allowed profanity is damn and hell, no smoking or vaping, and no sexual topics.
You know who says damn and hell a lot? Teens.
Yes. And then there is YA2, moderate kissing, light... I forgot. I wrote this 2 weeks ago, so I forgot what I wrote, but this makes me laugh. Light travel of hands, justified violence, no drug use, no underage alcohol use beyond a sip by the main character. The allowed profanity is shit, ass, bitch, and then all of the YA1 expletives. No, smoking or vaping by side characters and mention of sexual topics. So we need to pause here and talk about this one.
I love this because it's really reminding me of like high school when you're trying to figure out what like the different bases meant.
Yes.
What were so it was moderate kissing, and then what was the touching?
Light travel of hands. So
Light
I'm assuming
travel of hands.
I'm assuming that means like somebody can touch a butt.
But like only if it's like on its way to the small of your back or something. Yeah.
No, there's no lingering on
Right.
the butt, but on the way to somewhere else you can touch, or perhaps you can graze a breast.
This is exactly like, is second base above or below close? You know?
Yes. For all the teens listening, a home run is a kiss.
Yeah. Definitely.
No. Okay. But on a serious note, though, I do want to take a look at why it says justified violence.
Yeah.
Because what does that mean? Obviously, one could be like, I don't know, because the thing that I think of first is like somebody's about to get sexually assaulted and somebody else like punches them.
Right.
But what else could, I mean, who is this justified by who, you know? I mean,
Right.
is there a cop showing up to a party, and what does the cop do, and does that count as
Is this
justified?
Castle doctrine? Is
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's also,
Or is it, yeah. Is
I
it
don't
just
know.
like escalating violence in terms of, you know, like somebody did something to you, so you know, you can hit your brother back 10 times harder or whatever. Yeah.
right. And this is still on YA2, there's still no drug use. So does that mean like drug dealers can get murdered and that's fine? I don't know. You know, it's this, I think, gets into like, okay, this is very much of a subjective view. So, and then, and I'll just mention of sexual topics. I don't know what that means. So you literally can't like mention sex
In the
YA1?
Yeah.
That's interesting for a teen book.
But like also, what does the mention, like you can't like say that like you went to like sex ed class, like you know, like there are, yeah. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So YA3, we'll move on, and that is mild descriptive.
This is mouth stuff.
We're rounding third base, or closed door scene, descriptive violence, sexual violence, mention of drug use, underage drinking, getting drunk by main character, allowed profanity is fuck, smoking or vaping by the main character, and sexual topics. So this one I find like very, very weird. The fact that you can, so in YA3, we're putting descriptive violence and sexual violence at the same level as mention of drug use.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong. Obviously, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting sexual violence in YA books because teens experience that too. But it just seems really weird to say you can't even like mention a teen smoked a joint at a party.
Right.
Or you can just mention that, but you're going to be able to have descriptive violence.
I mean, like that's always been a problem that we've had in the United States, though. I mean, usually it's about like sex versus violence, right? Like what's appropriate to show. Like you couldn't show a woman breastfeeding, but you could definitely show somebody's head blow up or something like that. But like, not to equate breastfeeding with sex, because it's not, but like the idea being that like, you know, breasts are inappropriate and extreme violence isn't. But that's who, I mean, I know you're going to tell me, but who came up with this? I love the phrasing of like allowed profanity, as though like I don't know. I mean, I know that it's what's allowed at that level to like deem it at that level, but also like putting fuck at the same level as describing extreme violence or something like that, which is wild.
Putting any swearing at the same level as a lot of these things is just is very strange. I mean,
yes,
sorry, but kids start swearing at middle school at the very least, if not before. I don't know. Anyway, okay, yeah. So our last rating is YA4. Descriptive sex, open door scene, extreme gore, descriptive
what is open
drug
door
use.
And closed door? Sorry.
I believe.
Is this like The Bachelor?
When I don't know. This is a terrible movie to bring up, but the thing that I thought of when I read it was Gone with the Wind, the movie. Obviously problematic for a lot of reasons, but there's one part where like Scarlett is like fighting the dude. I can't remember his name, but I think he's her husband, and he like picks her up and carries her up the stairs to the bedroom. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's implied. I mean, looking at it now, I think if I watched the scene, I would think that's like rape. Because she was like angry at him, and then it was like, I'm gonna take you to the bedroom. But it's like, I guess that's my example of a closed door scene where they're gonna do it.
So sex is implied. But
yes.
Yeah. So that's weird because like level 3 has descriptions of sex, right?
Level 3 has mild descriptive sex.
Closed door scene. So that's like the Bachelor fantasy scene or fantasy suite thing where it's like you see the door close and then they're inside and then you can hear like mouth noises and it's disgusting. I've never watched The Bachelor, but for some reason I'm aware of like everything that happens.
Here's the thing. This is totally off, but like I don't understand why in post like reality shows like that don't edit out all of the like mouth noises.
Oh, they keep it on purpose. Like that's definitely a choice that they make. But
it's so gross.
Yeah, it's very gross.
Okay, so YA4, descriptive sex, open door scene, extreme gore, descriptive drug use, excessive alcohol use and partying, allowed profanity, cunt. Everybody in Australia is like, excuse me, that's YA1. Let's see, excessive smoking or vaping by main character, in-depth sexual topics. So, okay.
Excessive vaping is like... It's so funny just because like you can walk down the street in like any city or like walk through like any strip mall in any city and there's just like there's a shop with a door open with a couch in the middle of the room where people sell like vape cartridges where they just sit there and that's all they do all day is play video games and like sell vape cartridges and that's all you have to do to see that. You know, where you'd have, where would you have to go to like see somebody having an open door sex scene? You know, like what a weird thing.
It's also like watch any movie made before like 1950 and they won't open their mouths to kiss, but every single character from 12 years old and up is just chain smoking all the time.
I just saw, I'm sorry, this episode's a mess because of me, but I just saw I'm going to have to send it to you, but the most insane video on Instagram. It's French, it's from, I don't know when, but it's this video of Serge Gainsbourg. He was like a pop and jazz musician in France, and this video is like it's 24 like 8-year-old boys dressed like him, so they've all got like these fake gray beards on, and they're all holding glasses, like whiskey glasses, and they're all smoking, like pretending to smoke cigarettes, and they're singing one of his songs to him.
Oh my gosh.
And he is also smoking a cigarette. It's like at some sort of tribute to him. He's also smoking a cigarette and crying the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
And I only bring it up because I feel like it has changed my life fundamentally. But yeah, to your point, not that long ago, like kids, like a common snack that we had or a thing we could go buy at the store was fake cigarettes. Yeah, not saying that you should. Don't smoke. It's not great for you or anyone. But like, it is funny to equate that to anything on that list again.
Well, yeah. And like one of the things that really caught my eye was extreme gore. So as a person who watches horror movies, I think my idea of extreme gore might be a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But if you think about extreme gore, I'm not going to just, I don't know. I don't want to even say it, like try to describe what I would think of it, but it's bad. And it's like hard to imagine that that's what these people, I'll tell you who it is in a minute, would be thinking of extreme gore. Like, are they thinking of like disemboweling or what is extreme gore? I don't know.
Like
that just
cutting someone's throat or, a compound fracture. I consider that extreme gore. That's very upsetting to me. Compound fractures are something else.
Let me tell you, anything that has to do with like fingernails, that's extreme gore.
Oh yeah,
to me,
that's extreme.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
So, on their website, we'll circle back to the website here. There's little logos for each rating, and YA1 is a cloud against a light blue background. YA2 is a raindrop against a dark blue background. 3 is a cube against a maroon background.
What?
And 4 is a flame against a black background.
What does a cube signify?
I don't know.
That's fun.
And it's also kind of weird to have like a flame, like hell. So it sort of feels like a bad thing. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I also wrote on here what like sexual topics. I know we kind of talked about them a little bit, but like, again, who is deciding sexual topics? Is mention of somebody being gay a sexual topic? Mm-hmm. Because that's sexual identity. Gender identity, like who decides that?
Right.
So those are all, problematic. So anyway, back to Foz Meadows. They dug in a little bit more and found that the 4 people running the website are, drumroll, white Mormon women. Surprise. So Meadows said this too, but I agree. There's nothing wrong with like running your own website for your own Mormon church to find appropriate books. But the fact that they aren't like labeling it that is kind of weird. I know I had to go look this up when I was reading about this because I heard about this years and years and years ago, but Focus on the Family is like an evangelical Christian.
That's what I was just going to bring up because they basically have a similar website for television, movies, and books. Yeah.
Yes. And I went to it. It's called Plugged In because I wanted to see what it was like. And to be honest, like it actually wasn't bad because these people actually read through everything and watch everything. It's really more of like a review. It's hilarious to read it because they also do a swear word count. So you can like look up your favorite movie and find out exactly how many times somebody said ass. They also describe the sexual topics that happen in like, it's just the most dry description. Like her husband touched her breast and looked at her, I don't know. Yeah. It's very funny, but it is, well, and it also reminded me of Does the Dog Die? That website.
Yes. Yeah.
Which really is, it's kind of expanded, I think, with a lot of
I need to dig into that because I think they talked about it once on Who Weekly, and there was like a lot, like there's like a crazy number of like trigger warnings that they include that sound just kind of like fascinating, like destruction of a beloved toy and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's also very funny. Because I do use Does the Dog Die? Because honestly, sometimes I just don't want to deal with seeing the dog die. And again, that site's all user generated and you can vote. So like if you're reading something and you're like, no, I know the dog actually dies, and this person says it doesn't, then you can, downvote them or whatever.
Right.
So, why is this site different? So, this YA book writings is actually, they're not reading all of these books. They're actually reaching out to agents, authors, and publishers, asking them to verify the content of YA books so they could rate them correctly. Which, I mean, it's just weird to ask somebody to rate their book like that. And I just feel like it could come up with like so many problems. Like, I know the I believe Storygraph, which we use, is kind of like a Goodreads alternative. They were having some issues with that, with content warnings, because anybody can put in whatever content warning you want. And I don't know. I just think that's an issue. But in addition to it, according to the Mary Sue article, the website had posted something about how the founders were planning to sell stickers, which I think we can guess means they were going to market to school libraries, bookstores, which is really where the bad part comes in. Right.
So they were basically trying to do like the parental ratings that we got in music in like the 90s or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So like that is just going to be, so they're going to market, and then these books are going to get the stickers. And then I know that now when we look back on the parental advisory stuff, like anybody can buy, you can walk in, not that I guess nobody does that anymore, but you can buy whatever CD you want.
I was going to say, who has bought a CD recently?
But when the ratings did first come about, like you really couldn't. Like a lot of the bigger stores just wouldn't sell records with those stickers on, like any Walmart and stuff. They just wouldn't do it.
I remember that happening at Walmart because my mom bought me a CD and it wound up being a like censored version of whatever CD it was, and that was very upsetting to me. But it turns out because Walmart never carried like the original versions if there were, profanities or whatever on the CD.
Yeah, so it really did have an impact on those bands and stuff, or musicians. And I think too with the film ratings, that all changed also. And I think, what is it, MPAA? I think that's probably the best parallel, because there is a short time, the pre-code era, where you could have like gay people in your movies and things like that. And then once the codes came out, you couldn't do that anymore. And that's why when you say mention of sexual topics, it's like, well, what are these sexual topics you're talking about?
Is that having a queen size bed in a marital bedroom sort of situation? Is this like the Catholic League or whatever that like made sure that Lucy and Desi had twin beds that were on opposite sides of the bedroom? Yeah.
I was so confused by that when I was a kid. I was like, I don't get it. Why are they like that? And then I was like, how did she get pregnant? I could not figure it out. But
well, as everyone knows, there's only one place you can do the act.
In a twin bed. Yeah. But yeah, so the final result is, after, of course, it blew up on Twitter, a lot of other agents and publishers and authors were like, yeah, that's weird. My agent was contacted about this. I don't feel comfortable doing this. The website was immediately pulled down, and all of the founders' social media locked or deleted. They had like a podcast, very much clearly active in the book community.
Yeah, it's interesting because they can have all of those grand ideas where they're like going to start marketing to bookstores or something, but like the music stuff, like that was like an active Congress, wasn't it? Like that had like a committee, like a political committee, like actually in Congress for it. So like, I don't know. I don't know that I would trust that. I mean, I don't know. Most bookstore owners are pretty savvy, I would say, and also oppose that kind of like soft censorship or any kind of censorship. So I'd be surprised if it would have even managed to get off the ground, honestly.
Yeah, I do think there's something about books, about reading, that people tend to think is just I don't know, a bit better or like higher art than like music, you know? I mean, every parent is happy when their kid is reading, whereas it's not as much when you think about like, oh, kids these days and the terrible music they listen to. It's just kind of different. So, yeah, and I mean, I don't care if they have a website, but if you do tell me you're Mormon, I am kind of gonna assume that your values are probably different than mine.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I know that maybe sounds unfair, but if you look at like Mormon doctrine, that's how I'm getting this from. And that's where it gets like uncomfortable, where it's like, yeah, a lot of authors, especially YA authors who are writing about difficult topics for teens, aren't necessarily going to want some white married Mormon women deciding what rating their book is.
Yeah. It's interesting because very briefly this topic came up in my class last night. I'm taking a teaching literature to adolescence course right now, and we're reading a young adult novel that I hadn't heard of, but it's by an author I have heard of. And I wouldn't say it's a good book, and I'm honestly not 100% sure why we're reading it. But to that effect, our professor asked if this is a book that we would include in our classroom libraries, why or why not. And, you know, some people, you know, brought up like, well, maybe I wouldn't teach this book in class because I don't know like why, you know, necessarily why I would teach it, but like, I don't see why I wouldn't have it in my classroom, but it's probably good that I would know that these topics were in it. And for some reason, I'm like, I don't know that I care what topics are in the books. And maybe that's just because when I was a kid, like, I don't know, I was going to the library and I was picking out books that I'd heard stuff about like being weird or spooky or, you know, risque and stuff. And I was reading them because I wanted to know about that stuff without having my teachers judge it, basically, you know? So like, to me, I don't know. I don't know that I care enough to censor like what kids are reading or find out if they're reading about sex or drugs or whatever else, so long as, you know, they're not making bad decisions in their real life. I don't care what decisions they make in their reading life. So, I mean, it's just such a weird topic. I was surprised to hear students in my class be like, well, I would probably keep that in my classroom, but it's good to know that there's sensitive topics. But I also agree with what the author is saying. And it's like, oh, you know what? I also don't really know that I need to keep books in my classroom that I agree with. Like, that's not the point of reading. But, anyway.
No, but that's exactly it. And it's just also hard in today's world where unless you are severely restricting your kids' internet, there is so much worse on the internet that they can easily find. So the fact that like a book, if there's a YA book published by a major publisher, I am going to assume it's probably going to approach even sensitive topics perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing is a lot of these sensitive topics, these kids are already experiencing, maybe their friends are experiencing it. So it's like weird to me to try to like keep kids away from finding out there's bad shit in the world. I just want to know like what world these parents or these adults grew up in that they can't remember what it was like to be in high school and to like remember what people were talking about. Yeah. I don't want to think about teens having sex. I don't want anything to do with that. Okay. And so I understand how it is uncomfortable to know that teens are having sex, thinking about it, like dealing with these very difficult things, learning that the world is unfair. But I mean, what better way to do it than through a book? Right. But seriously, I mean, have you just take a look at like fanfiction.net or whatever it is, .com. But yes, I mean, that too, with, you know, putting books in your library that you don't necessarily agree with. I mean, and then ideally you're a good teacher or a good parent and your kid can come ask you questions, right? Like that's right. If they have them, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to keep like the Turner diaries in my classroom library, but like, you know, Corinna's like all books or no books. But yeah, I don't know that I'm that worried about
the goal should always be making sure that your students or your kids or whatever like can evaluate things critically, and then you just kind of have to trust that they will figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't believe that reading hurts you. So, yeah.
Yeah. And also, so I mean, kind of back to these founders, I'm not going to mention anything specific, but some people on Twitter kind of dug a little bit more into their stuff and found they very much like to promote like so-called, here, finally, a clean romance, things like that. Mm-hmm. And again, fine, that's okay for you. But calling it YA book ratings, considering, marketing to libraries or bookstores, that gets a little bit weird. I don't care if you want to only read clean romance and you want to make a website for people to find that. But it's weird to say, like, all of this trash is out there. Finally, here's some good stuff. I don't know. I don't like that, I guess.
It's just, I don't know. It's silly to me. I don't know. Like, the other thing about it is that, like, if you're reading a book, you can stop at any point.
Yeah. Yes.
So, like, it's not like if you get to something and you're like, uh-oh, I feel something's like coming that I'm not gonna like, you have to you can't get off the ride. So I don't know, it's just it's funny to me that like you would be that concerned about it, I guess. I also just wonder, like, what ultimately, like, what benefit to the world do you think that has? I guess I don't understand. Like, less information? I don't know. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Again, these are YA books. Like, they're not some kind of weird smut you found on the internet. Like, these have been through like an editing process and judged okay for teens by somebody. And I'm not saying that like you always have to defer to authority, but it's just not like I don't know what they imagine it is, I guess. Yeah. And I mean, I know they have like a YA 4 and it's rated that, like, it's not like they're like, don't read these, but I don't know. Again, I think if they had just been very open about what their what they planned on their agenda and who they were, it would have been fine. Because like that Focus on the Family, you're not going there unless you already agree with Focus on the Family, or you're me and want to laugh at the reviews.
Although sometimes, I mean, like, I think I would come across that website, the whatever it is, the Focus on the Family one. I would come across that when I would Google like reviews for certain books. And usually, like, it might have been like when my nephew was younger and I was looking for books that were like appropriate for his age, and not necessarily because I was worried about what he might be reading so much as like I didn't want to give him a book that would somehow embarrass him because his aunt gave it to him.
Yes. Yes.
That sort of thing. So yeah, I think you can come across those things Googling. I don't notice it as much anymore, and maybe it's just because I'm not looking at young adult books as often. So maybe it doesn't come up, or maybe like the Google algorithm has kind of evened it out a little bit. I don't really know. Yeah. But I feel like it used to be a top result. But yeah.
I mean, and I think too, we say this all the time, it's just reducing it into one rating. Like all of it's like read a review of the book that like the Focus on the Family thing, because it goes into, even if I disagree with everything they say, it still goes into depth about exactly what happens. Just sticking a rating on it, you lose all nuance.
It's funny too, because like, I don't know, I think about all of the things that parents like let their kids watch that they never even bothered to watch, and it's so much easier to watch a thing before a kid does than it is to read a whole thing before a kid does. Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, the thing is, you could just go and read a few reviews on Goodreads and find out whether or not, like, you know, get a feel for it and find out whether or not it's something that like aligns with your values pretty easily. But also like, why? I don't know. Why are you so concerned about everything aligning with your values? Yeah. I say that as someone who comes onto this podcast often and like preaches about my values, I suppose. But like, But at the same time, like, my life isn't ruined when I come across somebody who, you know, has different beliefs or, you know, writes about things in a different way than me. I just roll my eyes and, like, move on with my day. Just, like, relax.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of said this on the last mini too, but I think about so many things. The fact that, like, for, I don't know, 25 years of my life, the only Muslim people that were on TV were terrorists.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, isn't that, to me, more damaging than reading A Light Travel of Hands in a book?
Would hate to know that, you know, people touch each other sometimes. I also just, I don't like other people telling me what I should and should not think is, like, damaging. I don't know. I will decide that for myself. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know I've basically kept plugging that stupid Focus on the Family site. Please don't go to it. Don't give them page views.
No. Don't. What? Who is that? Pat Robertson?
Graham, I think. Isn't
Graham.
it? Billy Graham?
Billy
I
Graham?
don't know.
Or is that, wait, which one's, is Dobson? Was he back?
Oh, that's who it is. Yep.
Phil
It's
Dobson or something?
James Dobson.
James
I
Dobson.
think. Yeah.
That's what it was.
All right. I guess that's it.
What a funny, I don't know, like, weird way to spend your time. Get a hobby. Yeah. Thanks for listening to The Bookstore.
If you would like to support the podcast beyond listening, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thebookstore or rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
You can find all of the ways to contact us. Our email and phone line and social media links are all at thebookstorepodcast.com.
Our next book discussion will be The Hunger by Alma Katsu. You can find it at your local bookstore or library and read along with us.
The Bookstore is a production of Awkwardly Social Media, produced by Becca Younk and Corinne Keener, with technical and production support provided by Josh Bourdon and Zach Titus.
And John, if you're out there, thanks for listening.
See you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Ass bitch.